That is when we stood tallest. Out of our torturous struggle for equality morphed a mighty pride and honor.
Slaves to our freedom.
But now our pride is built on hollow motives and aimless ambitions. Today, to identify our oppressor, the modern black American need look no further than his own mirror. All of us aren't lost. Many of us know damn well that the emperor is butt naked. Every day we fight the good fight. But high praise for low thinking has taken its toll on generations. When so many are lost, there is enough blame to go around. When Martin Luther King Jr. prophesied the black man one day reaching the so-called promised land, he said,
I might not get there with you.
Lord knows he didn't think we'd end up here.
Islam, inconstancy is powerful in the heart of man. Intemperance sweareth it whither it will. Despair engrowth much of it, and fear proclaimeth. Behold, I sit unraveled therein, but vanity is beyond them all. Weep not therefore at the calamities of the human state, rather laugh at his follies. In the hands of a man addicted to vanity, life then is but a shadow of a dream. The hero, the most renowned of human character, what is he but the bubble of this weakness? The public is unstable and ungrateful. Why should the man of wisdom endanger himself for food? First off, I'd like to rise giving praise to Allah. I like to give praise to Allah because it is He who is the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'd like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. We like to give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali because it was he who reached down into the watery grave of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything is harm, and set you and me back up right on our feet again. I'd like to give honor to the forerunner to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Moses Garvey. I'd like to give honor to Marcus Garvey because this brother had to have pure thoughts in order to pave the way for love. I'd like to give honor to our two flags, the flag of our origin and the flag of our birth. And honor to our charter that gives us the right to function in these United States and throughout the world without molestation or ridicule of any kind. I'd like to give honor to all literature pertaining to Islam in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to the leadership of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to Brother Lynch-Bey, our brother who's getting ready to go in the hospital this week to have that leg cut off, foot cut off. I'd like to give honor to F-Fit, because so many of us don't even try. And last but not least, I'd like to give a special honor to Temple 2 here in Portland, Oregon for our wills and our ways. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals, that none was able to open and read from its sacred pages the messages of purity and love. We got a powerful one today. We have a powerful lesson today because in the Moorish Science Temple, we are taught about the theological seminary and we're taught about the theological cemetery. And as we finish today, you'll get the opportunity to see where you was in a cemetery thinking that you was in a seminary. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals. The none was able to open and read from its sacred pages the message of purity and love. And I'm going to read from one verse. And the verse I'm going to read from is chapter 45. And I'm going to read from verse 7 in chapter 45, and it reads on this wise. The Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed of Mecca, beginning from Muhammad the first, the founder of the uniting of Islam by the command of the great universal God Allah. Thus we just had a reading of the Moorish Holy Quran, divinely prepared by our Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali for our earthly and our divine salvation. I also like to read from this book here. This is known as the Quran Questions for Moorish Children. If you don't have one of them, you can't understand what's in the Moorish Holy Quran. And what I want to read today, I want to read from question 82 and 83. And it reads on this wise. It says, was Satan to be bound then? It says, Satan was to be bound in part. It said, when was the head of Satan taken off? 1453 Byzantine. By whom? By Muhammad. So now we know that when we're talking about this Muhammad here, we're not talking about Prophet Muhammad of 570 to 632, because this was in 1453. And in 1453, this Muhammad was of Turkish nationality. And we want to get into this today. But before we do this, I want to go back to the Bible, because our chairman, I'm so proud of this brother, I honor him so much. Because, you know, the prophet said you must have the light before you can receive the light. This brother had the light, and now Allah is opening up his mind, and he's receiving some things. And what I mean by that, listen to him from last week. Because what he talked about last week is what makes me talk about what I'm going to talk about today. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share this book with you. The title of this book is The Holy Quran of Mecca. Now I have another Holy Quran. Here's another Holy Quran of Mecca, as we say. Then I didn't bring the one because somebody have. I have a Pickthall Quran. But what I want to do, we want to talk about this. Now, this book that I have right here, this one is by Maulana Muhammad Ali. Everybody's telling us we need Yusuf Ali. But in the ancient days, I go back ancient because I got over 40 years in. And even the Nation of Islam, because I was with them last night, let me tell you something. Before Prophet Muhammad passed on, the members of the Nation of Islam wasn't looking at no Pickthall or Yusuf Ali. They was coming from the Maulana Muhammad Ali. And we was honored in the Moorish Science Temple because the nation and the Sunnis helped us. Because during the time when Elijah was here, we fasted twice a year. We fasted during the time when the world fasted during the month of Ramadan. And then we fasted. We fasted in December. Because during that time, the Nation of Islam fasted during December. And the reason why the Nation of Islam fasted during the month of December was to take you into the spirit and get you away from these pagan holidays on which we was about to embark upon. Now, my nephew sent me a picture, or I seen a picture of him on Facebook. And he had Chris Aldala and all of these other brothers with him. And I wrote something on the picture on top, and I say, my nephew is with the body of the church. I didn't say the body of Christ. I had to explain that to the chairman. I said he's with the body of the church. I couldn't say the body of Christ because Jesus wasn't always the Christ. Jesus had to go through 7 tests, and after he went through those 7 tests, then he became the Christ. And he told us, what I've done all men can do, and what I am all men should be. So now let me get into this theological seminary and theological cemetery. Now, in this Bible right here, it says Noah had 3 sons. I teach you on this all the time because the prophet told the brother that raised me to teach it this way. He said Shem was not the oldest son. He said Ham was the oldest son, and he showed it to us in the Moorish Holy Quran. But they changed that. So now I'm in this book, the Holy Quran. Brother Navi said something so beautiful. He said, when I first started reading the Holy Quran of Mecca, he said, I read the footnotes too. So when we begin to study the Holy Quran of Mecca during the month of Ramadan, they have something called the 30th. And every day you're supposed to read the 30th of the Quran, and then they have a night of power. If you get this night of power, then Allah gonna bless you and give you some blessings. Allah blessed me and gave me some blessings. That's why I'm before you today. But I want to show you something. I want you to look in the book called The Cave. We're going to talk about another perspective of this cave, but I want to look at this book called The Cave in the Holy Quran of Mecca, Surah 18. Now, in the book that I'm reading today, it don't say surah, it say chapter. And when they talk about the great God Allah, it don't say God, it says Allah. And this is one of the reasons why the Prophet Noble Ali, this is one of the reasons why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and a lot of other different brothers gave us Maulana Muhammad Ali. Because when you begin to talk about anybody, you have to go into the Moorish Quran and see from which they come. Because I just said what he said about the Turks. He said the Turks are the true descendants of Hagar, who are the chief protectors of the Islamic creed beginning from Muhammad I. Now that Muhammad I was of Arabian nationality, but this Muhammad here is of Turkish nationality. Because they talking about when was the head of Satan taken off. It say the head of Satan was taken off in 1453 Byzantine by Muhammad. So now, let's look at this. He said the Turks. So that means the Moors fought with the Turks to restore the Islamic creed. When you see this fez I have on, this Turkish. When you see this Bey that's on the back of my name, this is Turkish. And Noble Ali took us into some science in our upper room to give us some understanding so we won't be in the theological seminary. I mean the theological cemetery, but we be in the theological seminary. Now, when you have this book, The Cave, I want you to look up Japhet. Because this is who we was talking about last week. We say that Ham represents Africa, which is the cradle of civilization. We say that Shem represents the Japanese, the Chinese, and the Vietnamese. And then we say Japhet represents Gog and Magog, the European nations. And when you look at the footnotes, Navi, in this Holy Quran of Mecca, because you got to understand that this book, Maulana Muhammad Ali, the first edition came out in 1917. Noble Ali was already here. He had already had the book established. See, Noble Ali got this book established before he came with the Moorish Quran. He said, Rome, you had me 2,000 years ago, but I got you today. They thought Noble Ali just was coming with the Moorish Holy Quran because the Moorish Holy Quran, wow, it came in 1927, not 1913. Before then, Noble Ali was on another piece of science. So anybody that has a copy of the Holy Quran of Mecca, look at chapter or surah 18 and look at the footnotes. And when you see Japhet, it talks about Gog and Magog. It talks about the Visigoths and the Goths. It talks about London. It talks about Europe. It talks about the diabolical spirit. It talks about Japhet. But you know what? You don't hear this in the church. Certain things they can teach in the church, and certain things that they can't. But when you begin to hook yourself back up with the family of nations, you won't hear no one talk about that. So I wanted you to look at this because we're talking about Gog and Magog. We're talking about the European forces of nature. And when we see Japheth, because in the Bible it says Japheth is the second son. But we know, the third son, but we know that Japheth is the third son, but this is Gog and Magog, the European forces. And when you look at it, it takes you back to the biblical. It tells you about Moscow, takes you about the Caucasus Mountains, takes you about the European nation. It just, the Saxons. It tells you so much, and this is in the Holy Quran. So we need to understand that when Noble Drew Ali came, he came with a methodology that was conducive to our growth and development because Allah sent him. Whenever a nation is in need for a prophet, Allah will send one. So now, Allah sent Drew Ali to us. Now we talking about the Ottoman Turks. We saying that the Turks are the true descendants of Hagar. We just say that Hagar is Japanese and Chinese. So now we say Africa is the cradle of civilization, and we see that all these different nations is hooked back up with the family of nations. So now everybody talking about Abraham. Because when you just seen us read, we said something about the Turks, and we talk about the Chinese. They all come through Abraham, which is the father of the faithful. Because when Sarah wasn't able to have children, the handmaid Hagar had a child named Ishmael. Ishmael is the father of the Arabian nation. But when you look at the Arabian nation, they look nothing like me. And I don't understand why. Because if you're talking about Hagar, the Japanese and Chinese, if you're talking about Abraham, because you know Abraham wasn't always Abraham. He first was Abram, and then he became Abraham. So now the whole world was called Asia at one time. The whole world was called Asia at one time. At that time when the world was called Asia, Europe was not even in existence. So now we understand that when you begin to talk about Noah's Ark, many cubits high, Noah's Ark rested in Mount Ararat. We're talking about Turkey now. Mount Ararat is in Turkey. So now you got an Asiatic Turkey and you have a European Turkey. Now when you went into Turkey, because the Moors fought with the Ottoman Turks, and I'm wearing the Turkish fez, and when we fought with the Ottoman Turks to restore the Islamic creed, those that was Muslims did not accept the term of European. Only ones that accepted the term of European was those that was a Christian. So now you got an Asiatic Turkey and you have a European Turkey. Now when you look at a Turk, from that perspective, he looked just like a European. But a Turk is one who submits his will to God too, because the Islamic creed in 1453 was fought by the Ottoman Turks, and we were still in Spain at that time. The Moors were still in Spain at that time. Now, I just fed you something, and I didn't give you caviar and champagne. Because when I'm hooked up with my friends coming up, they say, hey, man, let's go get some caviar, and let's go get some champagne. But they're going to try to give me a fish head. Caviar is a fish head. And because we trying to be like somebody else and take on other concepts and all that, you're going to eat a fish head. It don't make sense to me. So what I want to do right now, I'll be back. I want you to hear our chairman. Because, boy, we rolling. We doing some good things. Matter of fact, we going to Africa next year together. And if any Moors here in Portland, Oregon, your dues is paid up and you're keeping the line with all necessities of another temple, if you want to go with us, you can go, because Babamba and all them, we have some meetings over there. So the chairman will talk about that. So I mentioned something about a picture. And I'm going to let the chairman explain that to you, because we don't have time to talk about anything else other than the work of the prophet and our growth and development. Because, see, Jesus was not always the Christ. He had to let some things go. And he said, what I've done, all men can do. And what I am, all men can be in greater. And that's where we're trying to go. So without further ado, I'd like to call my brother and my friend, the chairman of Temple 2 here in Portland, Oregon, Brother A. Boston Hill.
Islam, Sheikh. Thank you. And first of all, I want to reiterate the praise and honors that the Sheikh gave at the beginning of the show. And it's a pleasure once again to be back before you this evening. I have a a lesson that I want to teach tonight. But first of all, I want to say Islam to our treasurer, Brother Navi Lynch-Bey. I want to extend honors, Moorish greetings to all Moors here, there, and everywhere. I want to extend also universal salutation to those who are searching or in the process of searching about how to proclaim their nationality. If you heard the song before that, as the show was coming into view today, and Chris picked that one out. I want to thank him for that. He's doing a mighty work over here, and it's good to have him with us, helping us out. But the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, when he arrived on the scene, he said, "Come all ye Asiatics of America, and learn the truth about your nationality and birthrights, because you are not Negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed, that you may learn to love instead of hate. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, colored, or black attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the ancient Canaanites from the holy land of Canaan." And the Sheikh went into his portion earlier, so I'm going to go into mine, and I'm going to first of all come from our Quran questionnaire, Quran question for Moorish Americans, because I like teaching from the Prophet's literature, because this is where I'm at this point in time, is that I'm following the Prophet. Key 85 says, "Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774. And those be Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian." And then Key 86, Negro, a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contains black water. What is meant by the word black? Black, according to science, means death. What does the word colored mean? Colored means anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. What does Ethiopia mean? Ethiopia means something divided. Key 90, can a man be a Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian? The answer to that is no. Key 91 says why? Because man is made in the image and after the likeness of God, Allah. And will you define the word white? White means purity, purity means God, and God means ruler of the land. Now, what I want to talk about today, my subject matter today, is called "The Names Have Been Changed." Okay? My subject matter this evening is "The Names Have Been Changed." And I'm going to talk about this Negro, black, and colored. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, because I want everybody to understand that your name, your spirituality, there's a spirit in your name. When you have your name taken away from you, or when you identify by something else, and people go out here and go file petitions with the courts to change their name to something else. When you do that, you take away the spirit, because there's a spirit in your name. So that's why I entitled this subject matter tonight, "The Names Have Been Changed." And as I read from the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Quran questionnaire, I want to say that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said in his other literature, he said, if Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, then it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standard of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. Now, this evening, this is my my portion, my measure that I want to share with you all today. And I'm coming from the Holy Bible tonight because I want to go to the book of Daniel. I'm going to go to the book of Daniel, chapter 1. And I am going to just read a portion of this. I may just read this. I may just have time to go ahead and just read the whole chapter. But I'll go ahead and do that. And this is what it says. It says, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he brought the articles into the treasure house of his God. Then the king instructed Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles, young men. Now I want y'all to pay attention to this. Verse 4, it says, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good looking, gifted in all wisdom, possessing knowledge and quick to understand, who had the ability to serve in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacies and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end of that time they might serve before the king. Now from among those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, and Mishael, and there was also Azariah. To them the chief of the eunuchs gave names. Now this is where we come into my subject matter when we talk about the names have been changed, okay? Now if you notice, I just read in verse 6 that among these sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. To them the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave Daniel the name of Belteshazzar. To Hananiah he gave Shadrach. To Mishael he gave Meshach. And to Azariah Abednego. But Daniel proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God had brought Daniel into the favor and goodwill of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and drink. Why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are of your age? So I'm going to stop there for a minute. I'm going to stop there for a minute because I want to talk about the names have been changed. Okay, so then if you notice that the African American, the so-called African American, the so-called black man, as you so speak of yourself, you know, if you think back over time, what nation has had their name changed about every 10 years? First we was black, then we was colored, then we was Negro, then we was this, then we was that. Now we African American, and whatever other American we choose to take upon ourselves. But see, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said that there is no Negro, black, or color race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race. See, so in order for us to be back on point and to take our place in the affairs of men, first of all, we need to change some things. You know, we need to change some things. And that's what I like about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's teaching, because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali teaching have changed me. I'm not the way I used to be. I don't do the things I used to do. I don't hang out with the people I used to hang out with. You know, so I have went through a process of change in my life, and I'm praising Allah each and every day that He allowed me to be able to have this everlasting gospel that we have in front of us right now. But what I want to talk about, because in verse 6, you notice that Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah have their given names. Those were their given names. But then the king proposed that he wanted to change their name because, see, when you take away a person's name, you take away their spirit. And I'm going to say that again. When you take away your name, or a person takes away your name, they take away your spirit because, like as I said before, there's a spirit in your name, you know. And so then they change the names, but also what comes along with that in the changing the name, they change the education process. They change the type of language that you use. You see, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we have our own language. We have our own customs. We have our own laws. We're a government within a government, a nation within a nation. So we have our own stuff, because I had somebody ask me the other day, said, well, happy Thanksgiving. I said, well, it's just another day to me. I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. I don't celebrate Christmas. I don't celebrate any of those kind of holidays because when the Prophet Noble Drew Ali came and brought us our name, our religion, our birthrights, our divine creed, when he came and brought us all that, he came and brought us even more than that. So, we need to be ever more thankful to the great God Allah that he divinely prepared the first American-born prophet to come to the Asiatics of North America who was without nationality and divine creed. So I want to thank Allah for that. But in the process, let me get back to this subject, because in the process of your name being taken from you, and that spirit of that name being taken from you, your eating habits, dietary laws have changed. The way you worship has changed. The food you eat has changed. And that's what's going on in this book, because I wanted to compare this right here to what I just took out of the Quran questionnaire when I talked about, gave the definition of the word black. Black, according to science, means deaf. Negro, a river, a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contains black water. White means purity, purity means God, God means ruler of the land, and so forth and so forth. And the reason why I wanted to bring that to your attention, because a lot of people don't think having your nationality is important. I've talked to a lot of people and they actually think that having a nationality is not important. But they still run around calling themselves Negro, blacks, and colors. And that is the sin. That is the sin, the greatest sin that you could ever commit against your creator, the great God Allah, and Mother Earth, because man derives his name from the earth. See? So when you don't honor your father and your father being the great God Allah, your mother being Mother Earth, because as I said before, man derives his name from the earth. You know what I'm saying? So then we have another situation going on over here. We having a scenario going on over here because the people that are referring to themselves under these names and labels that delude to slavery, it is great sin. And we not coming to Temple 2, I'm going to let you know this right now. Temple 2 is not coming to recruit nobody. We're not trying to recruit nobody. We're just trying to live a clean, moral life and obey the Prophet, and especially obey Allah and stay within his will and live our life right. Make the right choices, make the right decisions. And I'm telling you, I am so glad that I had the opportunity to be a part of this divine and national movement, because this right here has changed me tremendously. Like I said, I don't do the things I used to do. I don't hang out with the people I used to hang out with, and that's a good thing, because now I can enjoy my life, and I continue to study Prophet Noble Drew Ali teaching every day. Every morning I wake up, I study, and even when I'm out and about and taking care of my business, I have the Holy Quran up here in my mind, But see, when we talk about meeting Allah, the great God Allah, in the heart, because where's the nearest place we can meet Allah? We can meet Allah in the heart. And we're not talking about this physical heart that pumps blood, because this heart has no feeling. And remember what we said in previous shows before. See, man is not the body or the soul. He is the spirit and part of Allah. Man is not in flesh to think, it is not in bones to reason. So something has been added to you. Higher than all is the object of thy senses. Behold, what is it? So that's something for you to think about right there. That's really something for you to think about. But let me get back to the book of Daniel, because I want to make another point while I do have the time to do that. And I want to go right here. And it says, so Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance be examined before you, and the appearance of the young men who eat the portion of the king's delicacies. And as you see fit, so deal with your servants. So he consented with them in this matter and tested them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who ate the portion of the king's delicacies. Thus the steward took away their portion of delicacies and wine that they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. As for these 4 young men, God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had the understanding in all visions and dreams. Now at the end of the days, when the king had said that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. Then the king interviewed them, and among them all none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they served before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding about which the king examined them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were in all his realm. And if y'all know the story about Daniel, y'all know the story about the lion's den when Daniel and his brothers was in the lion den, and Allah saved them from that. So there's a spirit in that name, and when you are true and faithful to your name, see, because we in Acts 7, he said all those that all members who keep in line with all necessities, and pay their dues and subscribe for as much as you are able to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. When you do that, when you take care of your responsibilities, then you're entitled to the name of faithful. But we have a lot of people that come in and can't do that. But see, in being faithful to your name, being faithful and honoring the creed and principles of your forefathers, we just come to warn you of the wrath which is sure to come upon the earth by the great God Allah. And Prophet Noble Drew Ali was a divine warner to his people, to the Asiatics of North America, to tell us to redeem us from our sinful ways. And I want you to also understand too, because I like this too, because when I first was introduced to the Moorish Zion Temple of America, and brothers started telling me I had a higher self and a lower self, I didn't know what to think, because I ain't never been taught that I had a lower self, that I had 2 selves, and that was a wonderful thing to be able to come into the Moorish Zion Temple of America and learn that about myself, because a lot of times we get into trouble and we get ourselves in situations and everything like that. And the first thing we blame it on, I've heard people say, the devil made me do it. Well, it was your devil that made you do it, because you got a higher self and a lower self. And the lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. And the higher self is just the opposite. The higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. So, you want to stay faithful to your name, because you want to stay faithful to that spirit, because that, like I said, your name carries a certain vibration, carries a certain vibration that is in line with Allah, and we have a chapter in our Holy Quran also, the Holy Instructions of Unity. We have another one that talks about unity of Allah and man, But in Elihu's lessons, The Unity of Life, which is in chapter 3 of our Moorish Holy Quran, Elihu is teaching Elizabeth and Mary, you know, about what their sons were divinely prepared to do. And in that, he tells us about the higher self and the lower self. But he also tells us in there too, the Prophet Noble Ali also tells us in that chapter 2, that said the only devil from which man must be redeemed is self, the lower self. See, you don't need to be redeemed from nothing else but your lower self, because like I said before, the lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. So I want our Portland listening audience to understand that you are not Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian, and that you do have a nationality, because, you know, and this makes a whole lot of sense. Let me take this other reading from the Moorish Holy Quran, and this is in chapter 45. This is in chapter 45, divine order. I don't think it's the divine order. No, it's the capital. It's chapter 47. Excuse me. In chapter 47, this is the capital, Egypt, the capital empire, the dominion of Africa. And I'm going to read verse 9. I'm going to start at verse 9. And it said, according to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the holy land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from the descendant nature of his forefathers unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. And the reason why I read that, because this is a testimony right here, verses 9 through 11 in this book, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, they're telling you that no one is able to change man from his descent nature. Okay, so now if a Chinese man is born in China, and he comes to America and proclaims his nationality before the United States government to become a resident citizen in this country, he still has a Chinese. He's still a Chinese. So he proclaims his nationality, he becomes a Chinese American. Same way with Japanese American, Irish American, Dutch American, you know. So that right there is living proof that can't nobody change your descent nature. But still yet, you clinging to the names and labels that do allude to slavery, which is a sin. It is a sin for any group of people to embrace that those names and labels that delude to slavery. So we members of Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple 2 in Portland, Oregon, we just come to warn you of the great wrath which is sure to come. If you like to come by and get more information, you can attend our meeting. Come by. We have public meetings on Friday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Come by. We're 77 Northeast Knott Street, Matt Dishman Community Center. Come by and join us and hear some of this everlasting gospel that we can share with you and help uplift you, because that's the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Is the purpose is for the uplifting of fallen humanity. Now at this time, I want to thank you all for listening to me. I hope you got something out of my subject matter this evening. I pray that Allah bring me back one more time again. And but as long as we got this ministry, we're gonna keep coming at you. But in the meantime, I'm gonna call the Sheik back on the show and let him close us out. Peace. Islam.
Praise Allah, Brother Chapman. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you, sir.
I always say I don't hear this too rarely.
Thank you, sir.
Someone talking the way that you talking about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali.
Praise Allah.
The title of this chapter, I want to reiterate, the title of our chapter today is The All-Seeing Eye. Now, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali talks about the Moorish market straddling the fence. He also tells us that none can serve two masters at the same time. You have to love one and despise the other. So you can't live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and live according to hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harm at the same time. Now, the subject matter of today's show is the all-seeing eye. It didn't say the all-seeing eyes. It don't have a plural on it. It's singular. See, we have lessons that we're taught. When it talk about the all-seeing eye, it talks to you singular. And it comes back with what the chairman just finished talking about, the two selves. He said we have a higher self and a lower self. Now, when you're in your higher self, you can start dealing with that plural, which is the all-seeing eye. But if you have two selves, you can't deal with the all-seeing eye, because the all-seeing eye is the eye of God. The all-seeing eye is the eye of principles. That's why on all the top of the walls of Egypt, not only did it say, know thyself, it had the all-seeing eye there. Because when you begin to deal with the all-seeing eye, you're dealing with the kalima shahada. When you deal with the all-seeing eye, you're dealing with the fruits of the Spirit. When you're dealing with the all-seeing eye, you're dealing with love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So this is our divine creed. I like to reiterate, and I always love when Nabi teach this lesson. When Noble Drew Ali came, he had to do something that the rest of the prophets didn't do. All other prophets, when they came, they brought us out the grand creed, which is the religion. But Noble Drew Ali, he had to come. He had to bring us two things. When Buddha and Confucius, when Muhammad, they came to a people that had a nationality. When Noble Drew Ali came, he came to Negro, colored, and black. That's why he had to give us Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. So when you begin to talk about the all-seeing eye, you're talking about the oneness of God. You're talking about the higher self, because the higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. And we got to do the right thing. Here in Temple 2, we're not too concerned, because we know that King Ambition is a foe that man must fight. And when you begin to grow up in the Moorish Science Temple of America, then you want to be in charge. You know, you don't want to honor the brother or the sister that's in charge. You can be in charge now. But whoever you are and whoever you with, stay with the prophet. The all-seeing eye is in you, and the all-seeing eye is in me. Let me explain. Jesus. Jesus have a J in his name. And you always hear people talking about Jesus, ain't no such Jesus, because we have a lot of names that we call him. But let me explain. Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David. And when we talk about Jesus, we're talking about the African nation. We're showing the European nation that Jesus is a part of us. So you ain't got to call him nothing, because they say he leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. You got to be still here anyway. So when the great God Allah is talking to you, you got to be still. So you ain't got to call him Jesus. We want you to look at the principle, though. See, we don't want you to get the misunderstanding that when you begin to talk about the body of Christ, you're talking about the Spirit of God. And when you begin to talk about the Spirit of God, you're talking about your higher self. Like the chairman just said, there's a spirit in everything that we do. And I remember Matthew Zeal, when Graham Bay and I, we joined the temple, we was in the temple, and he sent us to the Islamic Center. And when we went to the Islamic Center, we changed our name. Mine was Abdul. I wanted Abdul at first because I didn't have the understanding. He said, no, Abdul is Arabian. Abdul is African. Lumumba is African. So we took on those concepts because divine creed is our principles. Drew Ali gave us these principles. That's why Drew Ali told the Moorish Americans, don't name your children Ali. And if you look around the Moorish Science Temple of America today, you got one prophet, you got two prophets, you got three prophets, you got people that's teaching Drew Ali. They got hats on their head, big old funny looking hats on, and they teaching the prophet. He said, whenever teaching a group of Moors, you must have moral standards, a heart of love, and you must be representing the prophet. Whenever the prophet addressed a group of Moors, he had his right head covered on and he had his right dress on because it's important. Now, we want to call ourselves Negro, colored, and black. I heard the chairman. And Drew Ali said, through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honor not the creed of their mothers and fathers and strayed after the gods of Europe, whom they knew nothing. And what are the gods of Europe? Well, My God is who I call the slave master. If I smoke cigarettes, if I drink, if I fornicate, if I do any other thing that's diametrically opposed to God, that's who my God is. See, because you meet him in the spirit of truth. You don't meet him in the physical, because it's not in flesh to think, and it's not in bones to reason. So now I heard the Most say that also. He said that, you know how you used to say the devil made me do it? And I used to say that all the time. That chump grabbed me in my collar. He said, Lynch-Bey, you give me the wrong beef. I am the devil. I called you, and you came. I didn't make you do anything. God gave you a will to choose. You know, somebody pass in your family, and they leave them a will. You might leave them a house, a car, etc. God gave all of us a will too. And in that measure, we have the will to choose. And the reason why I didn't choose God, because I didn't want to. I wanted to wallow in the mud, just like the prodigal son. The prodigal son is you and me, sister and brother. The prodigal son is you left your father's house. That means that you went out into the world and stopped doing what God said do. And then you came back home. And when you came back home, God opened up the door and let you in. So you are the prodigal son. When they talk about the Bible and certain lessons in the Bible, they are talking about certain events that transpired. And if you and I begin to look at those things that transpired, it can make us better people. Because Jubilee came to make us better citizens. This is why here at Temple 2, we're not too concerned about what nobody else is doing. Because we got over 40, 60, 90 years anyway. All we're trying to do is learn to love instead of hate. We're trying to be brothers and to one another. We're trying to be brothers to our sisters. We're trying to live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We're trying to live a moral and clean life. Like your mom said, Drew Ali did that. Drew Ali is the reason for me. If it wasn't for Drew Ali, I wouldn't be here. Because I didn't want to be here. I wanted to live a life like I loved it. I loved wallowing in the mud and talking at the same time that I knew something about God. How can you talk about God when you're walking with Satan? You can't serve two masters at the same time. You want to be all right with Satan, but you don't want to be all right with God too. So you can't do that. So I'm going to close out because I want to hear this brother sing. I always love hearing him sing. And because when I have a copy of my first convention of the Moorish Science Temple of America when Noble Drew Ali himself was there. I'm talking about the prophet. I'm not talking about 1, 2, and 3. I'm talking about the one that was born in 1886 and found the Moorish Science Temple in 1913. That's the one I'm talking about. Now, you can have 3 or 4, you can have many as you want. But here at Temple 2, we have one prophet, one nation, and one temple. So it's always an honor for the temple here to be able to come before our Portland listening audience to talk about our growth and our development and how we are overcoming certain things. How the things that we used to do, we don't do no more. The places we used to go, we don't go no more. The friends that we used to have, we don't have no more because there's a great change since we've been born. Now, I can have a sister or a brother from the same mother. And then you go to the temple, you got a sister and you have a brother there. But your brother and your sister biologically is living according to hate, to slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything in harm. And your spiritual brothers and sisters is living according to the fruits of the Spirit. The Kalima Shahada. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Which is your brother and which is your sister? Because your biological father could have had you out of lust and not love. So when you begin to talk about your brother and your sister, you're talking about the Spirit of God. If God is the Father, then those that follow the Father and do what the Father say do is your brother and is your sister. And that's where we mess up at, because we got biological brothers and sisters and we know they're wrong. And we'll stand up with them against the truth. You know who you are when you do that? You are Satan. It said, where are you going, Satan? I'm going to and fro the earth, seeking who I may devour. So when we tell people, let's drink, let's smoke, let's cuss, that is you, Satan, going to them. You going to them and trying to destroy them. You'll go, I used to do that. I said, come on, man, let's go get this money. Let's go take this money. I'm going to my friend knowing he got a wife and children, and I'm knocking at his door saying, let's go take some money. You know who I am? Knocking at that door? I'm Satan in disguise, all powerful, but yet full of jealousy, hate, and lust. Oh, thank you, Gerard Lee, because if it wasn't for he, there would be no me. So in conclusion, we at Temple 2 would like to say chapter 25 of our Moorish Holy Quran is, ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother has given ye suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brother, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thine own blood. If thy brother's in adversity, assist him. If thy sister's in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. I ain't no stranger now. I've been introduced it to the Father and the Son. I ain't no stranger now. At this time I recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which we draw our strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen.
Wade in the water. Wade in the water, Muslims away.
Wade
in the water. Jurali done troubled the water. I say, wade in the water. Wade in the water, Muslims wade. Wade in the water. Jurali done troubled.
The young brother was downright eloquent with his misinformed soliloquy. He said using nigger affectionately among ourselves takes the negativity out of the word, but that no other race of people can use it ever but us. And you thought that kind of reasoning existed only in the Twilight Zone.